Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio in the town of Geraldine, Alabama. Your source for news and entertainment. You can find us on television as well, channel 182 on Charter Communications. You can also find us on Abundance TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. We appreciate you listening to us. Thank you for doing anything else, but you're watching us right now, and with good reason. We got a sports guy out here. His name is AP Steadham. Has his own talk shows. Boy, you stay busy, AP.
I really have this past summer getting these shows ready to launch. The show that we have every week, the syndicated show, AP and Kelly, as we see it. It's about the Southeastern Conference primarily, but we always keep our eye on the national teams because we know that the semifinals, the SEC probably play Ohio State or Oklahoma or somebody like that.
Right. And one response we had last week when you were on the air after the show was, we like all sides of it, according to, I
Yeah.
think it was Nick who sent it. And Nick said that he's glad that you're talking about, what happens right here in the Southeastern Conference. But then as we inch and get closer and closer to the end of the season, we kind of keep tabs on what's going on with he called them, looking for it right now. He called them the enemy. Nick, they're not the enemy. But anyway, I understand what he means. But thanks, Nick, for sending that message.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We like to keep our eye on the Big Ten, Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State and Iowa, Wisconsin, all those teams. And then out west, I think we're going to be looking at USC, Donna. I think that's going to be a surprise team. Oregon, we'll see what they can do. Bo Nix transferred there from Auburn, and plus they have another quarterback that I happen to meet, Ty Thompson, 6'5", 230 pounds he's from out west, and he's a good-looking quarterback as well. So they played Georgia the first game. So we'll discuss that the week before the game. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And as we see it, what are you thinking about Bo Nix right now? Has it helped him to go to another team?
Probably so, because Donna, I've learned early in life that you want to be where you're accepted and you want to be where you have some comfort level. Now, that doesn't mean you flee every adverse situation, but he must have felt in his mind that something was not right. I don't know if it's the coaching, the scheme, a combination of things. So he's a legacy player, which was a big surprise as a starter. It wasn't like he was losing his position. So that was a huge surprise. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I totally understand that. If sometimes it's nothing to do with the team. It's just
Right.
that you feel out of place there. And you got to go with what feels good in your gut.
Yeah, he made a clean separation, but now he's coming back to Atlanta for his first game against Georgia, the reigning national champion. The game will be played indoors in Atlanta, so the weather will not be affecting the outcome. So I'm looking for a good ball game because normally the first game of the season, most everyone is healthy and enthusiastic, and they're at full speed, and they learned a lot for that particular one game because they've been studying it the longest.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to mention this to everybody out there listening and watching us. If you have any questions for AP, you can send those in a text form is easier, 256-659-4319. And so this question, one more, this is from Sean. And Sean, last week we were talking about Bo Nix. And it seems like the topic's going to be Bo Nix this week. And so his question was, do you feel like Bo Nix has burned any bridges? What if he wanted to come back to Auburn, or could that possibly happen?
Well, it's funny you mentioned coming back because there's a quarterback at Cincinnati transferred to Eastern Michigan, played up there, and then came back to Cincinnati this season. He's being considered as a possible starter. So that can happen, Donna. That's a possibility. I don't see it happening with Bo Nix coming back to Auburn, but we're not, eliminating that from the equation. But it's far-fetched, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. But you kind of have to treat this like a business. I know in our past, the businesses we owned I never really liked to hire anybody from a competitor. And it really depended on who the competitor was, because, some were not doing real good business, and you don't want to bring that into your business. But then there
No,
were some you'd say like, well, you know what, I think so, because they came from someone who was actually doing well in the business.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a possibility. But anyhow, Donna, the operative word that I've learned by studying some of the teams, not all of them yet, the word is transfer. There's so many transfers with each team, and that's going to continue. Maybe that number is going to rise, and that it'll hit a plateau at some point. But players are transferring to different schools. They're transferring to a rival. They're transferring within the conference. They're transferring within the division. I'll give you here's a prime example, Donna. USC might have three starting quarterbacks not playing at USC, University of Southern California. One's at Ole Miss, Jackson Dart. J.T. Daniels transferred from USC to Georgia. Now he's at West Virginia. Then you have Keaton Slovis transferred to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh plays West Virginia. You might have Keaton Slovis versus J.T. Daniels. They both played at University of Southern California.
That's really crazy. So why do you think we're seeing more and more of this? Because I mean, there was a time where if you lived in Alabama, you either played for Alabama or Auburn. I mean, that's just the way it was. Is it because the world seems smaller now?
Yeah, it's the technology, Donna, exactly, the TV. So all the games you can watch every Saturday or Thursday night or Friday, and Labor Day weekend, Sunday, of course. But that's the ability and the flexibility and the willingness for these players. They're used to traveling down. When they're young, they're traveling to these camps across the country just to have coaches watch them in competition, similar type competition, so they can be considered for a scholarship. So they're not afraid to live somewhere else, another part of the country, different region, completely different conference. Maybe you're from like Alabama. Bryce Young, quarterback from Alabama, plays at the University of Alabama. That wouldn't have happened probably years ago. Quite a few players are in the SEC from the state of California. You get a lot of players from Texas in the league now. The normal would be going to Texas and all those Texas schools or Arkansas or Oklahoma. So that's the norm now, Don. People are traveling all over. Used to be Notre Dame had players from everywhere. Now it's LSU, Clemson, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee. They're getting players from all points and directions: northwest, the northeast, the north, south, southwest, southeast. The players are gravitating toward the best competition, and that's the perception of the SEC. It's the best competition.
Well, maybe Joe Namath was ahead of his time.
He certainly was coming from Pennsylvania, Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania.
That was the big topic. I remember that.
Yeah, that was a rarity. That was a rarity. Now it's business as usual.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. So what did you do last week? What was going on?
Oh, well, we're just getting ready for the season, but we're just checking in on some of the teams, Donna. Let's start with Tennessee. I mentioned Southern California. Big transfer from there. Brew McCoy, 6'3", 220-pound wide receiver. He's still waiting on his eligibility. It's not been clarified with Josh Heupel, the coach. He hasn't made too many definitive statements, but Brew is getting better. He was getting healthy, so he's going to be a big playmaker for the Vols once he gets his eligibility cleared up. So, and they're working on some of the younger running backs. Now, one of the strange things about running back, you coming out of high school, you have thousands of yards and touchdowns, but what gets you on the field is right away is, do you understand the blitzes? Because the coach wants you to be able to block for the quarterback. So they understand that you're a good runner, and that's why you were recruited to the University of Tennessee or other places. But can you manage the blitzes? And so Josh Heupel, he discussed some of those young running backs that were coming along learning the blitzes. There's a competition at the left tackle position, Jeremiah Crawford and Gerald Mincey. So I think they're going to be all set there. That will keep Darnell Wright at the right tackle position. And then he also mentioned Jalen Hyatt, a fast slot receiver as a junior. He spent a lot of time this offseason studying the game, really committed to his craft. So that's something that the Volunteers can look for. I think they're going to have they have Cedric Tillman. He's a good receiver, all-conference type receiver. Brew McCoy, and then, as I mentioned, Hyatt. The running backs I was discussing, Dylan Sampson and Justin Williams Thomas. So they're learning that all those protections in the blitzes. And then the leader at the linebacker position, Juwan Mitchell, and they got some young linebackers, Aaron Beasley and Solon Page III. So they're trying to learn the position. Down at the inside linebacking position, where you're in close quarters and the ball is snapped, one step in the wrong direction, you're out of the play because they have the angle on you to make the block and they just take you out of it. So to learn the plays as an inside linebacker, you have to react on that very first step. If you make a mistake, you're out of the play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got to watch out for that. So let's talk Alabama and Auburn because I know Alabama, and that's always a big topic, even in other areas as well.
Oh yeah, some of the things I wanted to mention about Auburn. They had a freshman wide receiver down at Camden Brown, big receiver, pretty big, 6'3", 202. He might even gain 10 pounds by the end of the season because freshmen down they always gain 10, 15 pounds usually. But he's playing pretty well for them early. But that's an area that down they're focusing on the wide receivers. They must play better for Auburn. I mean, that's one place the quarterback needs 100% support. They've got to catch every pass, run the routes properly, have the timing and the rhythm down so they can be in position to get open and catch the ball. But that's really important for Auburn to show the wide receiver. Another transfer they have there, Coy Moore from LSU, the sophomore, 6'1", 192. So he had a TD. So, but that's a priority for Auburn. Well, another guy that transferred in from Miami, he played at Hewitt-Trussville, is Worsham. So I remember watching him play at Hewitt-Trussville. So they're looking for him to produce as well. Alabama had some injury news with JoJo Earl. He broke his foot. He's a kick returner, wide receiver, slot player, probably out 6 to 8 weeks. But they have other people that will have an opportunity down. I mean, Alabama has that depth. They have as much depth as anybody. Ohio State, Clemson, those types of teams, Georgia, LSU, when they get rolling. But so JoJo Earl was injured. Look for maybe Kool-Aid McKinstry. How do you like that name, Donna?
I do
Kool-Aid
too.
McKinstry.
Yeah,
You
that
like
one
that?
hangs with you.
Yeah, defensive back. He'll probably take up some of the responsibilities in the punt return game.
Mm-hmm.
A receiver that Nick Saban mentioned was Kobe Prentice, freshman receiver from Calera, 5'10", 171 pounds. So for Nick Saban to mention a freshman receiver, he must be playing pretty well. All these coaches, when they mention a freshman, Donna, they must feel confident that they have some maturity, that they can mention their name, and it won't go to their head. So that's somebody he mentioned. At the inside linebacker position, you have Henry Toa. He's a transfer from Tennessee. He played well last year. Looking at Jalen Moody, a 60-year senior, and then Deontay Lawson from LA here, Lower Alabama. So there's some of the leaders at the inside position. The other inside positions at linebacker are freshmen, young players. And Nick Saban used the term they're swimming, which means they're learning the position. They're trying to tread water. So that's some of the things that are going on at Alabama. All these teams, they scrimmaged over the weekend. So they had a chance to learn about the protection and the blitzes and get some timing down in the passing game, tackling in space, working well with the offensive line as a unit, look at the kicking game. So, we're getting closer, and some of the schools probably going to name the starting quarterbacks. Notre Dame, they named the starting quarterback because they want that person to take the reps. So that's what happens when you're getting closer to the opening game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Boy, I can hardly wait. We got those pom poms ready already. Phil has his for Alabama. I have mine for Auburn. We're ready.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But Donna, I think that one thing I wanted to discuss was we're going to look at that Clemson. I know that's one of your teams. You like to look at that, and their quarterback in California, DJ Ugalele. I believe that's the way you pronounce it, Donna. DJ
Better than I would
Ugalele.
do.
Yeah, DJ Ugalele. I'm trying to recall how I wrote it down phonetically. That he's a big quarterback, 6'4", whatever, 230, 240. But it's all predicated on if he has a better season, I think, for Clemson, because they have good replacements. They lost quite a few people, but they have some good replacements. And Clemson was injured quite a bit last year, down a lot of injuries. I mean, an unprecedented amount. So that contributes, because if your quarterback's not playing as well, you're looking for production to win ball games from other positions, and they had to have some reserves in there at the time. So Clemson's looking to rebound. They had, I think, 3 losses last season, which is unusual. In college football, Donna, 3 losses is a lot.
Mhm.
Whereas in the pros, it's not. It's you're one of the top teams. But in college, if you have 3 losses, that's an inordinate amount for a team that's usually in the playoffs, maybe 1 or 2 losses. So Clemson, we're looking for them to play better this season. I think Oklahoma is going to be an interesting season for them. They had a transfer quarterback from Central Florida, and they got the new defensive coordinator coming from Clemson, Venerables. He became the head coach of Oklahoma. So that's a brand new start for them at Oklahoma with a new coach. So we're going to keep an eye on them. Texas, I don't quite understand, Donna. People are predicting Texas to be top 15, top 10. They were 5-7 last year. Now I know they have quite a few transfers,
Mhm.
but defensively, I'm gonna have to watch and see how they improve because they were not good. I mean, they lost to Kansas by some ridiculous scores like 56-55 or 57-56, probably some overtimes in there. But I don't think they have the toughness on defense to make such a leap from 5-7 to maybe, let's say, 2 losses. I'll be very surprised if that happens. Maybe I think they'll have a better season, probably, because they have some transfers that will help them. But I just I don't know if they're going to be in the top 10. But Texas, they always have the attitude that we're Texas and we have resources, and that hasn't helped them in the past. I mean, they've always had resources, but they've been having some bad football teams as of late. So that's why
Uh,
Steve Sarkisian was brought in. But I think the surprise team is going to be, like I said, at USC. They brought in a tremendous amount of transfers, some very good players. Caleb Williams, the quarterback, came from Oklahoma. He went to USC, and then Spencer Rattler played at Oklahoma. He went to USC on the East Coast, South Carolina. So those situations will improve at that position for both USCs.
Absolutely. You know what? My Houston, Texas husband in there, who's running the board for us, is
Yes.
differing with you on the Texas thing. I mean,
Well,
Texas people, you know
yeah,
how
yeah,
they are.
right.
They're
They do.
proud.
I think they'll be better offensively
Mhm.
because the quarterback transfer from Ohio State, Quinn Ewers, a native Texan. So I think they'll be better at that position. I think they'll be very good on the perimeter. Some of their receivers, they had A.G. Hall transfer from Alabama. He got suspended the other day for an incident non-related to football, but he'll probably come back. And they got Jaleel Billingsley, the tight end from Alabama. They have some outstanding receivers there right now. I think the player that transferred in from Wyoming, I think he got injured though. But I do believe that they will play better on offense. I'm just not sure about that defense. I'm
Oh,
not sure.
who's listening to him? Let's talk a little, let's talk a little bit about. What can I say? He's an Alabama fan. Who knows? Let's talk a little bit of Kentucky. I know a lot of because of the flooding. There's more interest now in Kentucky. A lot of church groups are going out that area, dropping off donations and that kind of thing. So what's going on in Kentucky?
Yeah, I think the athletic department there, they always try to help the people
Yeah.
when they have these natural disasters.
Hmm.
So, but Kentucky, the football team, I think down they have a chance to be in second behind Georgia. And I'll be watching closely. Kentucky, Will Levis, the quarterback, he's very good, big, strong athlete, 6'3", 230 pounds. They have good running backs. Wide receivers are replacing somebody who caught 100 passes. So they're looking for some production collectively from that group. They usually have a good offensive line. Defensively, they're sound with Mark Stoops, and he develops players. He brings in players maybe they're considered a 3-star in their recruiting game, and they over time they get bigger and stronger and able to understand his system. But I think Kentucky, if they cannot stub their toe like they did last year against Tennessee and Mississippi State, maybe they have a chance to be undefeated and moving into that game, the last home not home conference game against Georgia in November. That would be, I bet that would be national televised game and a lot of excitement in Lexington. Maybe the one of the biggest games ever in the history of the program. But that's a long way off, Donna, and they have to show that consistency. That's easier said than done. But I think Kentucky has the opportunity, as does Tennessee, in that division, to be second to Georgia.
Hmm. Yeah, well, Georgia, always puts out there a big effort too.
Oh yeah, Georgia's a good football team. The championship quarterback returns. That's Bennett the fourth. Kirby Smart always recruits well. The top recruiting teams: Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame is having some success with the new coach Marcus Freeman, who was the defensive coordinator. So, and in Texas is recruiting well. Oklahoma, but Georgia. Now we're going to see if you can replace that record-setting 15 players that were drafted into the NFL. I think Kirby will. I just don't know how the quarterback position, how that's going to play out if Stetson Bennett will remain the starter the entire season. Now, they have three tight ends. Any three of them could be an All-American at tight end.
Hmm.
That's how much depth they have at that position.
Hmm.
Brock
Absolutely.
Bowers, yeah, Brock Bowers was the freshman of the year, the Sean Alexander freshman of the year, presented by the Maxwell Football Club in Atlantic City. So I spent some time with Brock. Excellent player, big, 6'3", 6'4", 250, 260, can run over you, can run around you, long striding, can make the catches. He's tough and highly productive as a freshman. So I can only envision what he's going to produce as a sophomore.
Hmm. Absolutely. Last week, I didn't know we were doing a poll last week, but we had some folks who were responding to, this, we were talking about college football players actually earning money while they're playing football. And so the poll that came in, again, I didn't know we were doing a poll, but people were just sending text in. And I'm going to say probably 98% of the people who responded are actually for it, which surprised me because
That is
before when right here in North Alabama, maybe it's just a difference in North Alabama, but yeah, I mean, we're actually for it.
that's a surprising number, Donna,
Yeah.
for sure. But it's not. It doesn't matter what we think about that situation. I don't believe it's going to change.
Mm.
Change, like we always say, the toothpaste is out of the dispenser, and so this has been coming probably for 100 years, Donna. Actually, the last 50 anyway. They've been talking about paying players for a very long time. They just haven't come up with the model. Now and Donna, it was one of those things where no one knew the exact uh, parameters that you should have to pay players. But you have to start somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And then you can make your adjustments moving forward. I
Uh-huh.
mean, there's no perfect system, but you have to be able to tweak it down the road. And so now you have the name, image, and likeness, and college athletes can be paid.
Hmm. I think it's a great idea. I just don't know what took so long.
Well, I think the wheels are cranked slowly because there was fear down. You don't have change. There's somebody who either benefits from a system or there's fear. I think those are the two primary things that will slow the progress of an issue.
And that's basically fear of the unknown. Will it be a
That's
success?
right.
You're going to have egg on your face, stuff like that.
Yeah, probably some of it is, yes. And then, Donna, there's always the shift of power. I mean, now the players, they're telling the coaches, I'm not getting enough money here. I'm moving on to another school.
That's one thing that's concerned.
Or think about it, Donna, 30 years ago, what was the power for a player? Oh, you want to transfer? Okay, you can sit out a year. You want to sit out a year? The
Hmm.
player's thinking, well, I'm mad, but I'm not that bad.
Yeah.
So, but now it's playing time and money.
Great point. Great point. Okay, just a few minutes left in this segment. I wanted to talk about the other show.
Oh yeah, we had two episodes so far. Kelly Finley is my co-host. She does a terrific job. I really like having her on board, and we seem to have good chemistry. That's what we've been told so far. And like I said, the name of the show is AP and Kelly as we see it, and so it's capital S, capital E, capital C. That's Southeastern Conference with an eye towards all the national teams as well. So we're on your station. I think that's when are we on, Don? I forgot the
On
day.
Fridays at 4.
That's what's in my mind. But there's so many stations. Donna, we're actually on over 30 plus stations, so it's hard for me to remember everybody. But that's what I had in my mind. Friday at 4, and people can listen in, and they also can catch us if they miss it on Spotify and some of those audio platforms for Android and Apple. And we just been having a lot of fun. We have a guest every week. The second segment, normally, our first guest was Steve Hatchell, the National Football Foundation president. He oversees, Don, there's 130, I think, FBS schools. It's 130 or 135, down to 774 colleges and universities play football, besides those 130 or so that play at the FBS level. So I didn't realize the number was that big. But so he oversees that, with watching the progress of all the schools and the game of football itself, and they manage the College Football Hall of Fame voting and induction process, which is done. They announce it at the bowl championship game, and then they induct them on that following December on that first Tuesday. Normally, that was an event at the Waldorf Astoria, but now they moved it to Las Vegas. It will be at the Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas, December 6th on a Tuesday. It's an excellent event. If you ever wanted to attend, all the coaches are there, all the people across the country involved in college football. It's a lot of fun. The inductees, everybody's wearing a black tie, and the women are wearing the gowns and the dresses, and it's just so much fun, Don. I highly recommend it to people, and there are tickets available. You can buy them with the Football Foundation site, and you can reserve the hotel as well at a special rate. So I recommend it. Our second guest was the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame Executive Director, Scott Myers. So we discussed that induction and that process, and down to 6,000 items of memorabilia at the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. It's one of the best in the country. There's world-class athletes from 28 different sports. There's sports figures that are inducted, coaches, and people have contributed to athletics. So that's a great event, and they hold that usually in May. And they announce their class, I think it's about the first week of December, on the first week of December. So that's an excellent event as well, held in Birmingham, Alabama. And if you get a chance to visit, I highly recommend it. It's a state treasure in Alabama.
Absolutely. I'll tell you another treasure was the Coach Paul Bryant Museum. And it was so fun just to look through the different faces of football. I'm talking helmets. You know how protective we are with the helmets the guys have now. But what were some of these made out of leather? I mean, or cloth?
Way back, leather, right? Leather. When they first started, they had to come up with something. So, but it all evolves on it, and they're still trying to come up with the improvement on the helmet side, because it's a collision sport. Football's not a contact sport. It's a collision sport. There's a difference. Going at high speeds, and you can get hurt if you don't watch it.
And concussions. We know about concussions with my mother.
Yes, yeah, those are last forever.
Yeah, absolutely, long term. So what's coming up on this next week's show with you and Kelly?
Yeah, we're going to discuss some of the nuances of college football with the shift in power. People believe because they have the conferences that are merging with some of the teams like the SEC, they're bringing in Oklahoma and Texas in 2025. I don't know if they're going to buy out their contract with the Big 12 and try to come to the SEC earlier, but I want to discuss what that means for the leagues. The Big Ten is accepting USC and UCLA, and that's a year before Oklahoma and Texas join the SEC. That's 2024. That's not very far off. That's a couple more seasons in the Pac-12, and then USC and UCLA will be coming to the Big Ten. So I want to discuss a few things about how the perception that money will make you better. I want to discuss that and see if that's historically true.
Yeah, that's a good topic right there. About a minute left in this segment. What would you like to tell the folks before you go?
Oh yeah, we're just getting ready for the season. My first game down, I'll be at the Florida State and LSU play in New Orleans on a Sunday. That's a Sunday night, I believe. So I'm interested in that. That's one of the better games across the country. You have two programs that have won national championships. They're close to each other. Come across I-10 in New Orleans for FSU, and you come down south slightly to New Orleans for LSU from Baton Rouge. So first year coach for LSU, Brian Kelly, out of Notre Dame. He came south for about $100 million down, and that would probably bring you north, south, east, or west, I imagine.
I think so. Hey, Pete, we're going to have to call it a day. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.